So my name is Donncha Madden, and I am a senior ecologist at Arup I'm a senior ecologist at Arup in Northern Ireland. I'm going to talk to you today about a project that I'm passionate about, and this is work we are carrying out towards the contribution to long-term conservation, nature conservation in Northern Ireland. So this is through a project with the Northern Ireland Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, and it's to produce management plans for 16 special areas of conservation, or SACs. These have been mentioned by Fraser in his presentation. What are SACs? They're part of the Natura 2000 network of sites which are designated under the EU Habitats Directive to protect representative populations or areas of the rarest species and habitats in the EU. We are developing management plans so that these habitats and species, and are also known as the qualifying features of the sites, can either be maintained in existing good condition or restored to good condition. Now, Northern Ireland's landscape is dominated by agricultural land. It makes up about 75% of the total area, with most of this being grassland. And this farmed environment contains a range of special habitats which result from the wet and mild climate and traditional agricultural practices we have in this country. Some of the most notable habitats, which cover a significant proportion of the plans that we are producing, are blanket bog and lowland raised bog. And these are wetland habitats which have developed over peat soil over thousands of years. These habitats are significant because they can contribute to water storage and purification, provide a home for a unique assemblage of species, and are important in terms of carbon storage. The dominance of farmland within the landscape in general means that its biodiversity is particularly vulnerable to change in agricultural management. In over the past 50, 60 years, there has been a large-scale shift from mixed farming to predominantly grazing systems. And this has led to a loss, degradation of some of the semi-naturals, which you can see on screen. Agricultural intensification has been the most significant factor driving a decline in species populations across the UK. And paradoxically, this has been driven by UK and European policies, primarily the EU's Common Agricultural Policy. And I'll not get into that too much just now. Although they are not obligatory under legislation, given current unfavourable condition and pressure on many of these sites, the decision has been made to develop conservation management plans. So our project involves three main strands in the development of the plans. These include meaningful stakeholder and landowner engagement. This involves identifying appropriate management, buy-in and local knowledge from those living and working in these areas. It involves habitat mapping, which is site surveyors on site utilizing a variety of traditional and more modern technologies, aided by pre-mapping via remotely sensed data and machine learning. And then identification of pressures and threats, which will then inform the actions or the management measures chosen to maintain or restore good condition. So how do we link these sites in rural Northern Ireland to the built environment in our cities? How does society in general benefit? Aside from the need or any moral obligation, which I'm sure a lot of people will feel on the call, to preserve the habitats and species of these sites because of their own intrinsic value, the good condition of the natural capital of these rural sites is directly linked to the ecosystem services which the site can provide. Cities don't exist in isolation, but are dependent on the ecosystem services provided by designated sites at scales both locally and regionally. Research published in 2019 has identified that settlement areas are ecosystem services benefit hotspots in multifunctional landscapes. And on the screen, I've got an example of the Belfast Living with Water programme run by Northern Ireland Water, which emphasises the importance of upper catchment management for cities. Identifying the current condition and actions necessary to bring these sites to good condition will inform any future land management schemes, which is proposed under the current UK 25-year environment plan, and thereby hopefully result in the multifunctional benefits or the public good that these sites can provide being recognised and realised. This can then lead to appropriate financing to maintaining these sites in good condition for the public good that they provide. And this means recognising not only their value as land for agricultural production, but also the underpinning role they fulfil in terms of societal and economic health, including in relation to areas such as climate change and flooding. The production of workable, realistic management plans for these sites will help set out a roadmap for the conservation of areas supporting our rare habitats and species outside of urban centres, helping to meet national and international obligations. In particular, they will make the sites better core areas for biodiversity and thereby contribute to a bigger, better and more joined up approach to nature conservation. These plans will contribute to managing and restoring the essential natural capital that supports nature and society as a whole. Is this something that we've historically neglected? Yes, probably, but I believe instruments such as these plans can contribute to the current impetus that we now have to put this kind of action central to all our strategic planning from international to local level. And that's it from me.